Good morning, everybody. Wisconsin State Senator Romaine Quinn is back for our monthly chat today, Thursday, November 30th, 2023. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Learn more at americansforprosperity.org and join AFP to fight for more freedom for all Wisconsinites. As a reminder, Senator Quinn joins us live on the last Thursday of every month right here on DrydenWire Live. If you've missed any of our previous shows, you can find those on our Facebook page under the videos tab, on our website at DrydenWire.com, or it's probably just easier. We store all of our recorded shows, or our live shows. We store all the recordings of those right on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com/DrydenWire. Because we do these shows live, it also gives our viewers a chance to ask Senator Quinn questions. So please feel free to put in your question during today's live show. Romaine, good morning. Hey, welcome back.
Morning. Glad to be back.
Yeah, how are things going? It's been, well, a month.
It's definitely colder than the last morning I joined you. But
yeah, no kidding.
December is upon us, right? It's
yes,
coming,
it is.
It's here.
So I love doing these shows when we have nothing to talk about. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to talk about something, but I actually don't have any topics written down, which I love, but I'm also a little, I'm always a little bit scared that it's, so what's going on? You're like, nothing. Well, so hopefully you have something to talk about, because I literally have nothing written down for today's show. It's just, we're kind of just winging it, which I kind of like anyway. So what is it that you want to talk about today? What's going on down in Madison and in the 25th Senate District?
Nothing.
No.
No, there's always something going on, Ben. You never have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's busy in Madison. Well, it shouldn't be, but it is. Usually December is more quiet, but we have some ambitious members that keep holding hearings on things, so we're not really home before we gear up again in January. So I just got home last night. I went down Monday. Testified on some bills, had a hearing on others, lots of meetings. There's always something going on. Our plate is pretty full. People will call and say, hey, I've got a bill idea. Would you like to be my Senate co-author from the Assembly? And, we think about it, we go through it, and I say, sure. And my staff finally told me, stop saying yes. We have too many bills we're working on. Stop saying yes. Learn to say no. So just yesterday, I had to say no to somebody on another bill that I support. So
wait, hold on a second. How much work does that put in for the staff? Explain that for people who don't know, like me. When you agree to sign on to something, how does that create more work? What does that entail? What do you have to then do, or your staff have to do?
Yep. Well, it's a mixture, right? I mean, you still, once you say yes, let's do a bill, then you start the whole process on how a bill becomes law, right? So, for instance, yesterday, Representative Nidwuski, I always say her name wrong. Very nice lady, Amanda.
Amanda, much better, yeah.
Representative Amanda called me and asked, I'm going to do a bill that requires a half a credit of actual civics being taught in our schools. Most schools already do have enough social studies, but some don't, and we want to make it a state requirement. Would you be interested in running the bill with me? And, I told her, obviously, I support that concept. We are graduating people without any basic understanding of civics. I know that because when I knock on the door, people don't know what the legislature does or what I'm even running for. So I think there's always room for improvement. So I told her, support the concept, but I just can't be your Senate author right now because we're busy. Because now what does that entail? I say, yes, we draft the bill. We start meeting with stakeholders. It gets assigned to a committee. You got to ask for a hearing. Now we're scheduling people to come down and testify. I have to be in Madison to testify when there is a hearing. And so there's work to be done to get it through the process. And we are already managing over a dozen other bills that are working their way through. And so there's only so much time in the week that we can just commit. So we have to kind of be choosy on which topics we kind of work on. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Good morning, Renee. Renee, she's legit. She's in Washburn County. Oh, my goodness. She's just a wonderful person. Thank you so much for tuning in, Renee. So what other bills? You said you had a lot of bills that you are on right now. What are some that you're currently working on?
Oh, gosh. So.
Oh, wait. Hold on a second. What happened to the Brewers thing? Is that finished?
That is done. It's a done deal. The Brewers are staying through 2050, and we're paying quite a bit to keep them. So I know you and I chatted, and you weren't a fan of the deal either. I made it pretty clear that I wasn't, and so I was a no vote, which is interesting. So I know we've talked about this before. It's always been a rule in the Assembly and the Senate, and I think the Democrats had this too when they were in control, is you always have enough votes to pass a bill with your own party. And if more join on afterwards, that's great. So in the Senate, we kind of have this unwritten rule. If you can get 17 Republican yeses so it can pass, we'll put your bill on the floor. So that rule was broken to pass the Brewers because we had 11 Republicans that voted for it and 11 that voted against it. And so it would not have passed with just Republican votes in the Senate, and it relied on Democratic votes to get across the finish line, which breaks the rule we've always kind of held for ourselves.
Sure.
So it's interesting. I think it's going to create a little bit of angst in the caucus amongst our own Senate leadership. And we did the same thing to pass an alcohol bill, which actually we should touch on because I've gotten a few calls on that. So not to pivot away from the Brewers. We've talked about it on your show quite a bit.
Yeah.
I just believe at some point nationally, we have to have a conversation about stop spending taxpayer dollars on sports stadiums that are owned by billionaire sports owners.
And that was it, right? I don't know all the details. It was just the concept of it, or the idea of it, that just, I'm uncomfortable with it. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of benefits to it. Representative Dave Armstrong, I believe, because he was on our show not long ago, I believe he was in support of it. He brought it up at the very end of the show. And by the way, I just wanted to let you know, I know you and Senator Quinn have talked about it, but I support it because all the from
Sure.
an economic standpoint, and I totally get it. There's I'm sure a lot of great reasons for it and benefits for it. I just in principle, you're making a fortune and you're billionaire owners, and then we're paying. I just didn't like the idea of it, but whatever, it is what it is. All right, so this alcohol bill.
And I mean, today's defense, he's not wrong. I mean, the numbers shake out where, if the state spends $380 million over the life of the Brewers, the state will collect $600 million. So is it a net gain? Yes. Which is good. So if you live in Barron County, if you supported the Brewers deal, one of your reps voted yes. And if you didn't support the Brewers deal, one of you voted no. One of them voted no. So you had great representation on that issue in Madison. But yes, the alcohol bill, 95% of it, not controversial, updating state statutes, antiquated regulations on breweries and things like that. So it was a great bill for a lot of small businesses. The key component that gives everyone heartburn is, how do we regulate wedding barns? How do we regulate these facilities that are popping up, hosting weddings, but are not licensed to serve alcohol, and allow people just to bring it in, serve it themselves, and host these private events without having a liquor or alcohol license? And so back when I was in the Assembly, and I even used my own wedding as an example, when Raquel and I were looking for a venue, we were going to go up to Tagalong up by Birchwood, Tagalong Golf Course. We knew the owners of the restaurant. The golf course and restaurant are separate, and they gave us a price, and they are a bar. And so you have to buy your alcohol through them. Even if they wanted to let you bring it in yourselves, they couldn't, because it would violate their own liquor license. And so we had that price. We knew we wanted to offer an open bar of something. It's Wisconsin. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
And so we knew that was going to be another added expense. Well, at the same time, I know Lauren Humphrey very well, who owns the Enchanted Barn down in Hillsdale. And Lauren said, hey, love to have you guys here. Whatever you were going to pay up there, I'll match it, and so you guys can come down here. And so obviously they're two totally different venues, beautiful space. Both spaces are great. Both owners are great. But when we went to Lauren's barn, he didn't have a liquor license, and we went out and purchased all of our beer, wine, and liquor and just brought it in, and he had people serve it. And so from a competitive standpoint, why would I not pick the barn when, if I want to have an open bar, I'm going to save money because I'm buying liquor at wholesale and giving it to my guests versus paying $4 a drink at another venue who is licensed and has to actually sell it.
Makes sense.
And so what we're trying to find, this middle ground of, if you're going to serve alcohol in your private facility and run it as a business, you should probably have to be licensed, just like everybody else. And so the heartburn is that they think, some people said we're going to close all these wedding barns. But the difference in this bill is, compared in the years past when I opposed it, is we will create a new liquor license for these venues. So right now, every community has a cap. Rice Lake has a cap. Chautauqua has a cap. Shell Lake has a cap. You can only have so many bars in your town. You can only have so many liquor licenses. There's a quota. And so this goes beyond the quota. So every barn venue that exists today, or even a private shed venue, doesn't have to be a barn, we will create a new license for you to get so you can become licensed and be that business on the level playing field. And so I know there's some heartburn by some out there. But gosh, it's about fairness. If you're going to be in the business of having people being intoxicated on your premise, you should probably have to be licensed.
Well, all right. So I run DrydenWire out of my house right now.
Yep.
So it's technically a business. So that means like when Dave Wilson comes over and, I give him a beer, it's, that's illegal?
No, that's not illegal.
Okay, good. So real quick, you brought up the cap and the quota. Do you happen to know why that is? Is it just we don't want everybody selling alcohol? Why is there one of those?
I think there's a lot of reasons, maybe some antiquated why we do certain things. I think a lot of people just didn't want the proliferation of bars on every corner, right? And so there's a limit, and at the same time, it adds value to your business, right? If I'm an existing bar, the value of my business might not be in my actual building. It might be the fact that I have access to a liquor license, and I'm one of the few in the town that have it.
Got it.
And so if we were to blow the caps off, I think you would devalue a lot of those businesses that exist and operate with that liquor license, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Oh, good morning. You're one of your colleagues, Representative Gabe Magnifici.
I wonder if she's back from Florida. She was sending me snaps, and I was jealous of the white sand and warm weather. So hopefully she's back and safe.
Brian has a question. Are you related to Rosemary Quinn Gabriel?
That's my great aunt. Yeah. Yep. I've read all of her books. She's a sweetheart. I think she turned, she's 92, I think, maybe, or she's had her 91st birthday. So my Quinn side, my great grandparents had a general store in Markville, Minnesota, just on the other side of the line of Danbury. And so it's funny, when I ran for Senate and I'm campaigning in Danbury and up in Webster and Siren and that area, people actually knew my family from when they were across the line in Minnesota. So that's kind of cool.
That is awesome. So going back to the wedding bar thing, I think I understand it, but not maybe all the way. So this was, I'm assuming there was, the Tavern League must have been a part of this. And they were probably for not having.
They wanted them to be required to have a license, just like their own members are.
Got it. So when you get this pushback, is it from now, like now what you've done, you guys have created now, you can get your own license specifically for this that isn't applicable, right? It doesn't add to the cap or the quota for a city or an area, right?
It goes above the quota. So the Tavern League actually, 5 years ago when I was in the assembly, we had this bill. And I told the Tavern League, I said, well, we're not going to force these people to get a license when one doesn't exist. You will put them out of business.
Yep.
And I said, well, you create additional licenses above the cap so they can get one. Well, no, we're never going to do that. I'm like, well, then I'm never going to vote for your bill because I'm not going to put these people out of business who thought they were operating legally. They were told by their local DA and they talked to their sheriff and they tried to do things right. And DOR wasn't clear. So you put $500,000 into this barn and you're going to tell me overnight I can't operate my business? Like, no, you don't do that to people. Yeah. So this bill, I think, was a compromise. And even if you don't want to get licensed under this bill, you can still hold 6 events a year, but only 1 per month. So you can still operate, in my mind, in the old fashion of people can bring liquor in and do what you want to do. And you don't have to have licensed bartenders. You don't have to have the regulations a bar or tavern does. So there's a little bit of a compromise. So I've already gotten pushback. You're bought and paid for by the Tavern League. And I don't know if they ever even gave me money or not, but it's the principle behind it.
Well, that makes sense. And I like the idea of having actually the six a year or 1 a month maximum. Right. Because there are some that isn't necessarily the full-time gig. It's just we do happen to have this barn and we use it for rare occasions if people kind of ask. So it's not like our, we're open 6 a.m. to 6 at night. It's not that. It's like a community center almost, but without being, a community center. Yep. No, I kind of like that. So is it really strong pushback? I mean, regardless of where the Tavern League is on this stuff, I mean, is there a lot of actual legitimate? So here's the problem with this, Romaine. Is there any of those? Because there's always goods and bads to everything.
I think there was just some philosophical arguments of adding more regulations onto a business, which I get that.
Yeah,
And if we weren't going to do this, then we should deregulate all of our bars, right? Why do our bars and our taverns and our other venues have to be licensed if these ones don't? So we could go the other way, but that's not what the bill did. And the authors weren't asking for that either, or the opponents. So again, just trying to find a space. And perfect example in Wisconsin, I mean, we like to drink and we like to get together, and we're going to get together and drink in any venue that we think is fun, no matter what the law says at some point.
Yeah.
Graduation parties. So we had my high school graduation party in a neighbor's shed. Can I throw you $200 and let us host it there? And obviously we had beer and alcohol for our guests. That's not illegal under this, because there's a difference if I did this twice a year for some cousins I know versus I do this 30 times a year.
Yeah.
And now I'm a legitimate business making a profit. There's a big difference there.
There is. And good morning, Mike Schaefer. Oh, good timing. I literally just told Mike, I actually just told Romaine right before we went live, like, oh, I got to write down Spooner Health commercial, because I always forget to air those on these. Hey, we'll be back in 15 seconds after word from Mike Schaefer and Spooner Health.
In our patient satisfaction surveys and in conversations with patients, they appreciate the fact that staff got to know them. Staff really took their preferences into account, and they just feel grateful that they are being cared for as a person.
To learn more about our services, visit SpoonerHealth.com.
There, I think that's the only reason that Mike actually comments. It's kind of his subtle way of reminding me.
If I get hurt, I want to go to Spooner Health.
100% right. We have a question here from Aderv Swanson. Who does the liability rest with if an inebriated guest leaves the party from an unlicensed once a month rare occasion and kills someone? Sue the venue, right?
Well, that's a liability issue. I think that every owner has to ask themselves, and most of these places obviously do carry insurance, some kind of an umbrella insurance or whatever. But yeah, that's a risk we're willing to take. We live in a world where anyone can sue for any reason. But yeah, if you're unlicensed, you don't have licensed bartenders, and you're allowing people to be over intoxicated in your facility and drive away and perhaps break the law, could you be held liable in a court? I don't know, but that's a risk you would have to take if you want to keep participating in that fashion.
Yeah. And Derp commented further, we like to drink and drive too. Some of us, 13 DUI offenses in some counties. Hopefully all who serve don't overserve. And kind of picking back on what you were just saying, Romaine, I think that's just kind of everyone is always that way. There's always a liability there. If, going back to that reference, if a friend, Dave comes over, has a beer, and if he leaves and get in a crash, well, he doesn't drink excessively. We'll sit in the garage and have a beer. That's it. But whose is that? That's a liability. That's on me. But if it's a business, is it on the? Yeah, I suppose each situation is going to be unique.
Right.
But yeah, that's do you guys put that? You don't put that stuff in the bill, though, right? That's not really a legislative thing, or is it? Do you state in there now because of this? Or is it just, you guys figure it out?
I think it's a mixture. I don't know what current law is. If, if bars are immune, if you have a licensed bartender and someone leaves the establishment and gets in an accident. At some point too, you can say, oh, well, an unlicensed person overserved me. But at what point is it my responsibility to know that I've asked for too many drinks, right? Yeah. So I don't buy these arguments that it's someone else's fault I got drunk. Just like I don't buy these arguments where, the person that manufactured the rifle should be responsible for an accident. Give me a break. Where is the personal responsibility on the individual making those decisions? Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, but I don't think we wrote that in this bill. But if you're going to wind up in a courtroom, you're probably going to want to have all these things answered saying, hey, I did my part. We're licensed. We're regulated. I had licensed bartenders. I did everything I was supposed to do, and someone chose to break the law when they left my facility. Shouldn't be my issue. Yeah. So
Dan has a question here. Does the local municipality determine the number of barn licenses? That's a great question, Dan. Is that when you said it goes over and up, that's a separate question. I just was thought of when he said that as well. Answer that one. And then I want to know, is there a maximum, a cap on the over and above the normal quota? They have their own. Is there going to be a limit to that too? So, but does the local municipality determine the number?
Yeah, it's not a barn license. It'd be an alcohol license. So we're not going to create a different type of license for these facilities. It would create a new class I think it's a Class B, which allows you to serve retail alcohol. So right now, for instance, like I said, almost every municipality is capped. So this would, if you're an existing business that operates now in that gray area, in the municipality or jurisdiction you're in, there will be an additional license in that jurisdiction that you will be able to obtain so you can continue to operate or become legal under the new law. We also put implementation out for 2 years. So if you don't want to go down that route and you already have weddings booked, you're allowed to finish those through and see those through if you don't want to change your business. But yeah, it's based on population. So like, for instance, the city of Rice Lake can get a new license for every 500 people it grows in population. I don't know if that 500 number is the same for a Chautauqua or a township, but that's what that cap is. And so if you're existing business today, the jurisdiction you're in will get an additional license above their cap that can go to you so you can continue to operate.
Got it. Just to be clear, has this been signed already? This is a done deal, or no, we just finished and we're waiting for the governor to veto, to sign, etc. This is a done deal.
Yeah, we passed it. I think he signed it. Because like I said, there was 95% of the bill did really good things for everyone in the alcohol industry in terms of regulation, supporting small businesses, clarifying the law on certain things. Is a seltzer a beer, or is it a cocktail? Things like that. Just updating our state statutes. And that's why everyone in the entire alcohol industry, who they butt heads a lot, from the distillers to the distributors to the retailers or Tavern League, all came together to put this package together. The only little piece was a handful of event venues that don't want to be regulated.
Well, that makes sense. And it kind of, so there's more. I want to find out more of the bills, I think, are going on, and I can see there's a lot of comments on this. But to kind of put a bow on this one so we can move on, the people that you know that do have these wedding barn venues, and knowing now that they're 6 a year, they have Class B, are they coming to you and saying, what are you doing? Or are they like, yeah, actually, this is fine, we like it? Or are they, no, we don't like it? Or are they somewhere in the middle, like, I don't like it, but we understand it?
I think there's always uncertainty in business, and business owners don't like that. So as long as they know there's that glide path forward, and if they're in a municipality where they're questioning whether or not they can get it, I'll be the first at that council meeting to come and say, hey, we passed this law to create that license for this facility, so give it to them. That was our legislative intent. Sure. But I don't know, Derv's comment, protect your constituents. This will come back to bite you. This one will. Too many drunks that need supervision. So I don't know what you're talking about, Derv. I just explained that this will actually license people that aren't licensed today. So I think you've got that one a little backwards.
Could be. Yeah, so some of these a little long. It's hard to put those on the screen and to read through all of them. If you can make your questions a little bit shorter, we can get those on the screen. So what else have you been working on down in or something that's already passed, or is there anything that you're currently working on?
Oh, gosh, we got a number of stuff in the hopper. One of them, we actually got passed out of committee. I believe it already passed the assembly, but I'm one vote short yet, so we're still twisting arms, is we would exempt broadband grants from taxation. So right now we know we're trying to get internet as far as we can to the most remote places in the state, because the internet is no longer, a luxury, right? It's important for economic growth, for healthcare, for education, working from home. The possibilities are endless, but it's necessary. I view it as infrastructure. And so when we give a grant to Norvado that's trying to build a line in Bayfield County, right now we'll give them a grant. Let's say they have $1 million project. They're asking for $200,000 from the state, and they want to plow fiber for a mile and connect 40 homes. Right now, when they file their taxes at the end of the year, the state views that $200,000 we gave them as income. And so we take corporate tax back off of that grant that we gave them to lay fiber. So in my mind, it makes no sense that we are giving grants to expand internet access, and then we tax them and take some of it back at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so I said, let's not do that. Keep the full amount of the grant, and you'll connect that many more people over the course of that time period. Because when you talk to Mosaic, when you talk to Norvado, they know when they get the grant, they know how much the project is, and they will connect fewer homes, knowing they're going to have to pay 7.9% on that grant at the end of the year. And so by doing this, with the federal money coming in, and all the other monies that are being spread around for broadband, this would actually result in $70 million a year more going out the door into the ground, and it doesn't cost the state a dime.
Got it.
And so just one more way, again, trying to get more resources into the ground to try to connect everyone that we can, especially in our district, which is very rural.
Yeah, up here. So you said you're still trying to get at least one more. What's the pushback that you're getting from your colleagues? Why they're not on board with this? What's the pushback?
There's a good portion of our caucus, and actually I agree with that too, is that they want to get rid of all tax exemptions, make it flat, make it fair, or make everyone pay the tax and then lower the rates, right? So instead of exempting income tax on these grants, let's make everyone pay what they're supposed to, get rid of all of our exemptions, and just lower the rates for everybody instead of picking and choosing. And I get that philosophically, and I think we should always try to move in that direction. But until we get there, there's certain things like this that I think just make sense. So there's some resistance, which I guess they're not right or wrong. I guess I think they're wrong because I want them to vote for my bill.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, just a difference of opinion.
Yeah, and that's how it's supposed to be, I think. Right? We're supposed to have those one side, I like this. Because a lot of these things, I think if you explained this before or talked about this in the past on one of our previous shows, that when you have one side, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. You may not support it, but there's a lot of good parts to it. There may just be one or two that, I can't get behind it because of these two things. Maybe it's just specifically for your district, because obviously the 25th Senate District, Shell Lake, Spooner, and Minong, and over in Burnett County and in Barron, it's different than it is down in Dane County, in Milwaukee.
Yep.
It just is. So you have to do what you think is best for your constituents, but at the same time, you have to do. Sometimes I'm assuming you have to. I don't love this one, but I know it's going to help out a whole bunch of the state. Not really going to help us out. Do you ever get questions from some of your constituents? You're at a parade or something, or emails that, why did you vote for this? This doesn't help us at all, and have to explain. I hate to go there, but for the greater good, but it helps a lot of other people and it doesn't really hurt us that much. Do you have any of those conversations?
I think occasionally, and that's where, you have to allow your representative to do the best job they can to get you the best deal they can. And so if I was a no on everything that didn't particularly impact our district, why wouldn't everyone else be a no on everything that does impact our district, right? So it's all about relationships, building relationships, compromising. And it's not like we're not compromising on our core values to see a project done in the Dells, right? That may not impact us directly, but that same senator from the Dells will hopefully support something that's particular needed for me in my district. So for instance, the money we got in the budget for our fish hatcheries in northern Wisconsin. If I lived in Green Bay or if I lived in another county, why would I care that we're spending, a couple $1 million to upgrade a fish hatchery in Bayfield, right? They wouldn't, but it's just part of the process where, again, you build those relationships to try to get the best deal you can.
A couple of weeks ago, the Wisconsin Supreme Court started, I don't know if it's called taking hearings or something about the map things that were going on. It was
Oral
about
arguments.
about the, what's the word? Contiguity, I think is what it is. Have you been following that? Do you know? Is there an update? What's happening? Where are we right now? Was it just like a day's worth? A couple of weeks worth? What's the next step? Or is it just kind of stalled right now? Do you follow that? And if you do, where are we right now?
Yeah, when I was in Madison, I got to my room for the night and I was flipping through and C-SPAN came on and the oral arguments were actually on C-SPAN. And so I watched it for an hour until it ended because I'm a nerd like that. But yeah, it was interesting. I don't think the other side's attorneys did an excellent job. So what they're arguing is the continuity issue or contiguity issue is that there's certain pieces of land that don't touch the district. Well, in certain areas around Madison, there are those pieces of land. Sometimes people don't even live in them, right? And so the other side have argued, all right, let's fix these contiguity issues and then go from there. And then, of course, the other side will say, no. Don't just fix those. Let's redo all the maps across the state. And not only that, everyone has to rerun for office next cycle, even if they don't have contiguity problems. And so clearly the intent, and I listened to the arguments when they asked the plaintiffs, when's the last time you believe we've had a legitimate map then? since we've had little island issues all the time. I'm like, well, like the 1960s. So I'm like, oh, so conveniently you sue on this issue. In the fall of the year, you flip the court to your ideology to get a remedy that you think has been around for, 60 years, something like that. So again, it's just politics, but
I know, right? I would do the same thing. I mean, if I were actually political, if I was done, I would do the exact same thing. Like now we might be able to, and it's going to help us, and that's what everybody does. I'm just saying that's how politics work.
Right.
It just is.
I think the only issue with that is, and again, I've never been afraid of the map that I've been in. When I ran for the assembly, I was the first Republican to hold that seat back to back in 42 years. When I ran for the state Senate, I announced before I even knew what the new map was. Even with the new map, there's a few changes around the edges. It was still a 50-50 seat. We won it by 14 points. I'm not worried about the map. I'm not scared of my constituents, right? I think we try to apply some common sense. I work hard for our district, and I think that message resonates over time, even if we don't agree on everything. But the idea that every single district is gerrymandered somehow, even though ours is 50-50, and that every senator, even those that were just elected, has to run again, which has never happened in the history of the state of Wisconsin, I think is just a little bit egregious. And for those that voted for myself, they voted for me for a 4-year term. And now I will get a 2-year term if the court rules in favor of the plaintiffs, which already seems like the deck is stacked. And so how are you not violating the 65,000 people that voted for me in their right to have a seated state senator for 4 years, and you're taking that away from them by making everyone run, if they rule that way, every 2 years? So we're going to wait and see. They can draw a new map. I'll run again next year. That's fine. And we'll go from there. But it's just unfortunate that there's a new precedent that anytime there's one election on a court, we can relitigate everything that was already had precedent set. Our maps went to the federal Supreme Court. They were instated by the state Supreme Court. And now, because one seat flipped, we're going to relitigate all of it. Like, do we relitigate Act 10, right to work, all the stuff that we've passed? Well, no, you run for office, you elect a new body, you change the policy, you convince people your idea is the best, and then hopefully you win at the end of the day. And if you don't run to the courts for a remedy. That's not how this is set up. And I think we're on a dangerous glide path in that direction.
If you had to run next year, after just 2 years, well, hey, you're used to this. You were in the assembly. This is normal for you. I'm used to running every 2 years.
Yep.
And then you get reelected. Does that mean in the 2 years after you have to do it again, or is everybody? Because I thought, isn't the Senate split? Like, not everybody, or maybe they do. I don't think they do. Right? Yeah, because it's split. Not every senator runs every specific 4 years, like a presidential cycle or a midterm. Yep. Correct? Like Rob Staffsholt didn't have in the 10th. He didn't have to run last election, so he would have normally been up for this one. You wouldn't have been. But if everybody has to run next year, then what? Is everybody just now on that 4-year cycle, or does some people have to run it again in 2 years? How does that work?
We would stagger well, the court can do whatever they want, but everyone is staggered by even and odd districts. So we're in the 25th, so we're an odd district. And so we always run on a gubernatorial cycle in our district. Next door in the Hudson seat, Senator Staffsholt, he is on the other cycle. So he is always up on a presidential year because we staggered it. So no different than the federal government. Our framers were extremely smart. Even our state constitution, the Senate doesn't flip every year like the House because it creates more continuity. So not both houses of the legislature can be completely wiped out in one cycle, right? So the House is supposed to be more in tune, reflective of the moods of the people all the time. And the Senate is supposed to create some sort of continuity in government, which is why even our own state Senate, we could lose half of our members every time, but not all of them. And so I'm assuming we'd go back onto a split cycle. And so since I'm odd, I would have to run again the next year after the next election to get us back on this stagger. So yeah, leaving the assembly, I guess there's really no point because we're running back to back for the next 4 years.
Well, and now obviously we're laughing about some of this and having some levity, which I think is important. That you've been in assembly, used to doing this. People know you. You've been around for a while in this area. But I do kind of feel badly for Democrat or Republican, don't care, for the ones this is their first term. in the Senate, and they were supposed to have a 4-year term. And, the first year, you're just trying to figure it out. And now it's like, oh, wait, I got to run again? And wait, now I have to go to different areas because the map was redone? I kind of feel badly for them. They just got the job. Now, it's different for you. Granted, you also just was elected in the Senate, but you've been in the Assembly. Everybody knows you around here. I kind of feel badly for those people because I wonder if we're going to be losing some really great legislators simply because of how this was done. Again, Republican or Democrat. We could be losing some great ones. I don't know how likely. I don't know. I don't know. Is there any way that they can actually just do it and say, okay, we're going to go back to the maps effectively in your next run?
Yep.
But I suppose that wouldn't make sense, right? Because then some maps would be, I don't know.
Yeah, and it does apply to both sides. Because if you look, for instance, Senator Jeff Smith down in the Eau Claire region, Democrat, his district, no matter how you draw it, is not going to get more Democrat because he already has the city of Eau Claire.
Yep,
he was just elected when I was, right? And so now he is also going to get a new map. And there's a chance it could be more Republican. And there's a chance under a new map, he could lose his seat, even though he was just elected. And constitutionally, he was sworn in for a 4-year term. Is that fair to Senator Smith or the Democrats that voted for him for a 4-year term? I would argue it's not. Yeah. But again, that's for the court to decide.
All right. Well, it wouldn't be a show with you unless marijuana came up. Not because of you.
Because of me?
I mean, because you're a legislator and marijuana always comes up. Renee says, so is marijuana on the table? Think how the taxes could fix roads and stuff. So, yeah, where are the, well, in this case, Republicans, I suppose. Where are you Republicans on the topic of marijuana? Is that moving forward anywhere? The medicinal or anything else?
It's all over the board.
Sure.
I don't see it recreational happening with the makeup of the current legislature. I mean, there's people that are still going to vote no on medicinal marijuana, which is insane to me.
That one. Come on, we can all get behind that one, can't we?
Right. So I don't know if there's any colleagues on my other side that don't support recreational at this point. But yeah, on our side, there's definitely still heavy resistance. So
sure.
Like I said, I've always kind of said, if you pay your taxes and you don't neglect your kids and you go to work every day, I really don't care what you do.
I don't know.
So I don't know how we get to that point yet. But we'll see. And again, it's not all roses either. It's not like if we pass that, all this money, if you look at other states, a lot of them had to sink just that much money back into other issues that come up. Again, I mean, but let's be honest about it all. It's not the devil's lettuce. And I think it's not going to give us billions of dollars that all of a sudden life's better for the state budget either. There's going to be pros and cons. And I think we should have that conversation. And so both sides can just be open about what does actually happen when we do this. But frankly, I mean, the people are there. Poll after poll, the people are there. And at some point, I think the Republican Party is going to have a reckoning with this issue if they don't catch up on that.
Yeah, I think it's going to only kind of keep moving the needle in terms of when the Republicans, or maybe there are Democrats who aren't for it as well. I guess I shouldn't actually assume all of that. But I think when you start losing elections, I think that's when it's, okay, we should probably revisit this again, because if we actually, and I don't know how you figure that stuff out, but if we're starting to, we as in Republicans or we as in Democrats, whomever, and I think that's true for pretty much any topic, that, yeah, if we start losing, then it's, okay, are we really doing the work for our constituents? And if they're voting other people in, can we just give up this one topic, kind of move it forward? Because we have 99 other things we want to get done, and those won't get done if we're not elected. So, yeah, I think the results of the elections are going to probably move this forward, and that would probably be the best chance for it to get ever moved forward.
It's hard to say. I mean, we've got, again, our seat's 50-50. We've got my Democratic colleagues, they've got safe seats where they could never get unelected. I have Republican colleagues, they will never get unelected. So it's very easy for handfuls in the caucuses on both sides to just be bomb throwers, non-negotiators, don't have to come to the table. I'm principled and you're not. Well, it's easy for you to say because, I mean, they could run a dog and they would win in your seat.
Right.
As long as you called it a Republican dog or a Democrat dog, right? So, so there's other legislators who just don't have to compromise. They don't even have to entertain that idea. But at the same time, if your party's not in control, now I get nothing done. So you might have been principled, but now you get nothing, like you said. And so that's just the nature of the legislature, right? You have to weigh the benefits and the cost of how you choose to conduct yourself in office.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys do this job. It's a terrible job. You do know that, right? Being a legislator is a terrible job. Oh, my goodness. You get hate from everybody.
I would much rather run DrydenWire, but you get hate from us too.
I call it emotion mail, not hate mail. They're very. Sometimes we have to be the verbal punching bag, and that's fine. I just ignore them and move on.
I'm going to use that emotional mail. I'm going to tell my staff.
It's emotional mail.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yes. I get a lot of. Makes me feel a little bit better.
Oh, one other thing before we go. I know we're over our time.
What's up?
Deer season has come and gone. There's a lot of angst again. We just saw, even our Northern Territory, our deer numbers, harvested animals, are down 30%. So there's a lot of angst in our hunting community about the deer herd, the lack of deer, wolf issues, you name it. And so we're going to be having a listening session up in Solon Springs at the barbecue joint. It's blanking. Representative Sappick really spearheaded this, so I want to thank her for that. So Representative Sappick, Green, myself, and Armstrong, and I think Senator Staffsholt might pop in and make an appearance, are inviting everyone up. Tell us your concerns. Where would you like to see state regulation go in terms of hunting? Do we raise fees on out-of-state hunters? Do we limit doe tags in our northern zones? Do we not give out doe tags for non-state residents that come and hunt in Douglas County, Ashland County, Bayfield County? Do we go back to back tags? Do we go back to in-person registration? Do we go back to having a physical tag on your animal that we got rid of a few years back? So there's lots of parts, but we know there's a lot of emotional tension right now regarding hunting, because it's very personal for people too. It's a tradition. It's part of who we are. So let's get it out on the table. Let's have this conversation, and I think that's the starting point. I think we're going to be out of room at this venue, but if you have interest, it's December 9th at 10 a.m. up at Hog Wild in Solon Springs. I remember the name now. So come on up and be a part of the discussion if you have concerns about our hunting issues in Wisconsin.
So, not being a hunter myself, everything you just said makes no sense to me.
I figured that.
I even feel like you made some of that stuff up, some of the terminology, just to screw with me. But real quickly, if you can, so it's down, you said 30%. I thought I saw something say 18%, but regardless, it's down a lot.
Yep.
And that's bad because, forgive my ignorance, I literally know nothing about this stuff. Why is that bad if it's just down? I mean, I'm sure there's always like peaks and valleys every year, right?
Yeah, but we've seen a trajectory that continues to go down, right?
And why is that bad?
Because there's not enough deer.
And why is that bad?
I might hunt to feed my family, and I didn't get enough deer this year, right? Why would I go back to the cabin year after year and continue to hunt and part of this family tradition if I don't see any animals?
Oh, I see.
Right? And then all of a sudden I don't buy a license. And now there's millions of dollars that don't go to the DNR to promote habitat and management of wildlife. So there are huge benefits to getting people in the outdoors, both our youth and the rest of the population. And our hunters are the biggest conservationists there are, because a vast majority of all the conservation that we do in Wisconsin are funded by license fees by those who are actually in the outdoors. So, Ben, you don't pay for a lot of that. Hunters do through their licenses. And so if they're not hunting and paying that in, the money for conservation is also out the window. And so I think we're going to be in a real tough spot in the long run if we don't turn our deer herd around. Because why would I take my 11-year-old or 12-year-old out to hunt and sit in a stand colder than hell for 9 days and not see an animal? He's never coming hunting again. And you just lost someone that would have been in the sport their entire life. And so that's something we have to deal with.
And we just can't,
there's a lot of ideas and solutions out there on how to fix it.
We just can't. Okay, I know this isn't the right word. We just can't, grow more deer or like make, put them all together and have them procreate or something. I know it sounds stupid, but I mean, can't.
I'm going to drag you out of that studio.
Can't we just, if we cut down a lot of trees, we just plant more? There isn't a way to have at a deer farm or something and just have them all mate and wow, we got tons of them and just throw them out in the wild. Then we can't. I know that's so stupid and so ignorant of me, but in a weird way, I'm kind of serious. We can't we don't control any of that. We don't try to populate more deer.
That's what we do through our regulations, right? If we think there's too many deer, we'll give people more doe tags to shoot more does in that year.
Okay.
If we think there's not enough deer, we'll give out less doe tags and let people only shoot bucks, right? Because you can one buck can handle a lot of does. So if you want to, so a lot of people are saying, do we go to buck only again? Like in the old days, a lot of times up north, you weren't allowed to shoot a single female deer, trying to build that herd back up. And so we went to a different system where each county sets its own amount of tags they want, if they want to grow the herd or lower the herd. Then all of a sudden, again, you have a large wolf population, larger than we've ever had in this state since the reintroduction. How are they impacting the deer numbers? So there's just a lot of conversations of,
I get it now.
How do we fix this?
That makes more sense. It really does. And I know people are very passionate about it's northern Wisconsin. Packers, beer, and hunting, snowmobiling, ATV, land rights. I mean, that's those are big topics around here, and they should be.
Right. So let's talk about it. How do we fix it?
All right. And you said that's December 9th in Solon Springs at 10 a.m. at where?
Hog Wild. It's right off the freeway.
Sure.
Off 53. Yep.
Well, then if we're doing a show, which I don't know if we will, we always do it the last Thursday of the month, but that'd be like December 28th-ish or something. Assuming we're doing a show next month, then I can't wait to hear more about this, actually. See how that went.
Yeah, Representative Sappick posted it like 2 days ago, and it's had like 150 shares already. So I think it's going to be well attended, which again goes to the fact of people are upset.
Wow.
They're upset about what the state of the deer herd currently is, and it's important to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I'm actually learning something. All right. Yeah, I'm totally not doing that. I'll just wait till you come on next month and tell me what happened. Special thank you to Wisconsin State Senator Romaine Quinn for taking the time to come on for a chat with us today. I'll see all of you right back here on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald and I'll be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be airing a recorded show that we had Brad Schimmel last night. It was an hour long. So apparently he's making an announcement tonight. We have a show that we're going to be posting tomorrow morning. But anyway, so until I see everybody on Tuesday, thank you for watching. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden. Have a blessed day.